Well, hey, and welcome to the Brand Builder Show. We're back for another episode, and today's one is honestly a really interesting episode. I enjoyed recording this episode as much, if not more, than any others I have, just to be able to chat about buying, selling businesses, the market, what it looks like, where it's going, and honestly, some really interesting strategies that you don't hear talked about much. I've been thinking about some of this stuff, and it was really good to be able to chat it through with Greg. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the strategies that we talked about that are maybe beyond what a traditional Amazon FBA business would look like. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Do let me know. Feel free to reach out via email or any of our social channels. You'll find all of the links in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into this episode because it is a real good one with Greg from Empire Flippers. Awesome. Welcome to another episode of the Brand Builder Show. I'm here with Greg from Empire Flippers. Greg, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. I can't wait to hopefully add some value to your audience.
Definitely, yeah. We chatted for a couple of minutes there, and I'm already excited about everything you're going to be sharing. So, exciting times. Tell us a little bit about yourself, though. What you do with Empire Flippers, and whereabouts in the world you are right now.
Sure. So I am the head of marketing of Empire Flippers. I lead the marketing team, and a big part of that is actually doing what I'm doing right here, educating the market about, first off, telling them, hey, the good news, you can sell your business. And the second thing, educating them on how to do it in the best possible way, right? Yeah. As far as where I am currently, right now I'm in Bangkok. I normally live in Vietnam, but at the moment I'm in Bangkok. I'm always traveling here and there. Minus the last couple of years has been a little bit harder, but before that, everywhere.
Yeah, nice. And I probably should have said as well, what do Empire Flippers do if somebody's never heard of it?
Sure. So we help people buy and sell businesses. So we're the largest curated marketplace in the world now for people to buy businesses. From a seller perspective, we have I'd wager the largest buying pool of any broker too. Our buyer pool just went above $5 billion of verified liquidity that they can purchase assets with. So if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, Amazon FBA entrepreneur, you're in a very good market right now. So hopefully this podcast will get you inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely dive into a bunch of that. So $5 billion, right? And because I think I looked at, because I'm sort of very intrigued with this idea of acquisitions, buying a business and buying websites, etc. And so I've signed up to a few different, and I don't know if I did it with yours, but you have to kind of upload bank screenshots and get verified to kind of see all the juicy details of the.
That's us. Yeah, but so most brokers they have you do a letter of intent, an LI, which we have a form of that too. But in order to really get the intimate details of the business, you got to prove to us you actually have the ability to buy the business, which is one of our differentiators. Buyers really hate that, obviously, but sellers love it because they're talking to quality people all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that you are the largest curated marketplace. What specifically does that mean?
Sure. So curation means we decide what goes live on the marketplace. So there are other marketplaces that are bigger that don't have any vetting process whatsoever, and that leads to a lot of scammy or low quality business, especially if it's like a valuation less than 100K. That's usually where most of the internet scams live in. But for us, we have an entire team dedicated to vetting. That's their whole thing, is they look at businesses to make sure that they're quality, they're legitimate, they're doing what they say they're doing. We build their profit and loss statements, and it can be as complex as just fixing some errors to rebuilding it all from scratch, which some e-commerce entrepreneurs aren't the best with the numbers side of things, so we help them with that.
Yeah, we were just saying just before. So let's talk about that, because I was saying to you, I'm on your email list, and I saw last week about the FBA business that just got listed for 26 million, and it was big talk, and I was talking about it, and then you said, it's actually 30 million now because we corrected the numbers. So how did that happen?
So two things. If you pay attention to our marketplace, and it's we list new businesses every single Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA time. If it's at the end of the month, there's a good chance the businesses we list, their valuations may change a little bit because of the previous month's numbers becoming finalized. So we actually actively update their valuation on a rolling monthly basis of their net profit, right? So in this situation with the $26 million business, it had an insane December, so that shot up the valuations when we did the price update in January. But also, like I mentioned, there was an issue with the numbers in terms. I think it was the cogs, if I remember right. This is something our vetting team catches, right? So we were able to see that because we helped rebuild their entire P&L from scratch, basically, and that's what led to that bump. So if the seller was on a say like an uncurated marketplace, that would have been a very painful thing for them to have to learn when they go to sell. They would have missed out on an extra $4 million there.
Yeah, quite painful. Wow.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I don't know how much you can talk to us about that business, but just from what's on the listing, I think it was nearly 800 SKUs, based in the UK, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I actually haven't deep dived into the business. Funny enough, that business came as a shocker to me because usually we get told like sales team will alert my team when we have a big listing, so we can give it like some extra love and like make sure to follow it. There's a bunch of marketing stuff we do on the back end there, but this time they forgot, so it was like, oh wait, what? So they were just too sticker shock themselves, I guess. I haven't done a super deep dive yet into the business, but once it sells, which we're pretty confident it will sell because it's a pretty high quality one, you'll definitely be hearing from that seller if they're open to it to come onto our podcast.
So good. Yeah, no, that'd be amazing if they do. Please give them my details as well, because I'd love to interview them.
I will. Yeah, I'm sure she's going to be very excited. So she should be very happy with the deal we get for her, hopefully.
Amazing. And that's a female business owner as well, which is amazing. Great to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. You talked about obviously the size of it. Does that change the buyer profile, the process at all from a $2-3 million business? How does it work?
Yes, so I would say even up to the 5 million mark, you might end up still getting someone who's like what I would consider an ultra high net worth individual buying that business. But when it comes to a business this size, that's really when you're starting to get into more private equity and family offices, or in the FBA space, aggregators, which are basically very similar to a search fund mechanism in the FBA world. You're probably not familiar with a search fund, or are you? Do you know what a search fund is?
No.
So an aggregator, an FBA aggregator, is in a lot of ways a very fancy version of a search fund in my view. So a search fund is basically like I graduate from the Wharton Business School, and instead of wanting to go into high finance, I want to become my own entrepreneur. So they'll go to private equity. They'll get money from the private equity. The private equity will pay them, say, like 70, 80K a year to go hunting for business opportunities, to go buy a business. And then the private equity funds that acquisition, and that student who's now an entrepreneur through acquisition owns a chunk of that equity without actually ever using any of their own money. So that search fund is basically like kills two birds with one stone for the private equity, because they don't actually run the businesses, right? Yeah. And aggregators is very similar in that fashion. Obviously, a lot of differences, but in the mainstream, that's kind of what their function is, right? So those are the kind of buyers you'd be looking at as aggregators, search funds, maybe a high net worth individual, but much more rare.
Yeah, right. And because you guys would, because my initial thought was you would only sell to private buyers, but you would put the deals out to aggregators as well, and you're not sort of biased in that sense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is going to sound a bit weird, but I often joke with my team that the aggregators are like our children, because we are the ones that help them get all their traction, right? Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. Like, everyone says Thrasio is the first one, but Thrasio is the first successful one. Like, we saw them back in 2017 and 2018, and they were not very successful. They had not figured it out like Thrasio did. So Thrasio was like the first successful one. They bought tons from us, and basically still buy tons from us. They bought millions and millions from us, and all the aggregators basically do. And newer aggregators, they often come to our marketplace first because they don't have any deal flow yet, right? Because it's very hard to get private deal flow. It's a very competitive space. So pretty much all of them use brokers. And as a seller, like, so if someone is in your audience, I highly recommend it. Like, it doesn't have to be us, but I highly recommend you use a broker in this environment, because a good broker with good relationships with the aggregators is going to actually let you sell for way more, because the broker knows how to make the aggregators compete for what you have. Yeah.
So you would class yourselves as somewhat of a brokerage?
Yeah, we're an M&A firm. We're an M&A firm that happens to be positioned like a marketplace, right? But that, like, once you get above, say, especially like above 200,000 in terms of your valuation, we're very much more similar to an M&A firm than a marketplace. Like, we're building your P&L, we're doing the valuations, we're negotiating, we're even migrating the asset on your behalf. We're managing your earn-out payments, stabilization payments, you name it. We're a full-service M&A brokerage.
Yeah, right. And what would you say to the people that if they're thinking about selling their business, they think, well, you're just selling it to an aggregator. I could just go to the aggregator. Why would I come to you?
So this is an excellent. I'm really glad you asked this. Actually, this was a pre-planned question, just so your audience knows.
Sorry for going off script. I apologize.
No, I love this question because this is a very important question. So there is something I call the off market fallacy, and this really trips up entrepreneurs a lot, especially in the high end when you're dealing with an aggregators because the stakes are so much bigger. So the off market fallacy is this idea like, okay, I'm not going to go to a broker because I don't want to pay a commission when I can just go to, say, the aggregator and not pay a commission. And the logic makes sense on the surface, but it's only surface deep because when you go a few inches down, the buyer, say the aggregator, absolutely loves it that you're thinking this way. They want you to think that way because that means they're going to get a way better deal. And the reason why they're going to get a better deal is because selling a business is a highlight event. It's not something an entrepreneur is doing every single day. We do it every day, right? An entrepreneur, they might do it if they're super prolific, maybe once every 2 years, because it takes time to build up a big business, right? So that means they're already operating as an unsavvy seller to an extremely savvy buyer. You're like aggregators, they're financiers, the acquisitions managers. These people have done really big deals, much bigger than anything we've seen in the FBA space for the most part. Like, these are high finance wizards. They know exactly how to acquire, right? So you're already at a disadvantage. And what happens here is that aggregator will then use a marketing skill called urgency and scarcity, right? Say, tell you what, Donovan, I will give you $1.4 million right now, no questions asked. You have 3 days to say yes. Like, as an FBA seller, like, holy shit, I'm about to become a millionaire if I just say yes. This is a ton of pressure, right? Versus if you came to a broker and you ate the commission, you'd probably make way more money. And in fact, we have a story of a guy, he did get offered that $1.4 million with like the 3-day timeline to say yes. He came to us for a second opinion. We told him, you are worth way more than this. And we sold it for $2.1 million a few weeks later with $1.8 million up front. So just his upfront amount was bigger than the entirety of the deal. So that's why I call it the off-market fallacy, because it sounds so good until you look deeper into it and you're playing right into the buyer's hands.
Yeah, no, that's so true, so true. And you it's a massive deal. It's going to be a life-changing thing, so you want to make sure you're getting the best
for sure. It's extremely stressful. Even the smoothest transaction is very stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's you mentioned about the market and everything. There's a lot of buzz around it, even scarcity. Do you feel like this is going to be something that is going to last in terms of the valuations growing, the buzz? Is there a bubble that's going to burst? How do you see the next few years going?
Sure. So I don't think we're necessarily in a bubble. So if you look at online businesses, I've been with EF for almost 6 years. And when I first started, the main business we sold were content sites. And we still sell a lot of content sites, like affiliate sites and so on. We sell apps. We sell pretty much anything, right? So I'm business model agnostic from that standpoint, but it gives me a very interesting point of view in the sense that, like, it's not just FBA businesses that have risen in value. It's also content sites, e-commerce stores like Shopify businesses. They've risen in value. SaaS businesses have risen as well. So I think what we're seeing, especially in the non-SaaS business models, is this level of parity that's starting to happen. So if you looked at like an offline business, say like your local laundromat or industrial warehouse or something like that, the multiples that they got were extremely bigger than an Amazon FBA business back in 2016 and 2017. Yeah. It's just like no contest, even though the FBA business is printing far more money than that industrial warehouse most likely, right? Like in terms of like actual net profit, it's just like you can't even compare the two. The Amazon FBA business wins every time almost. But what we're seeing now is those traditionally offline businesses, their multiple advantage no longer really exists, and the online businesses have been around long enough that people have enough trust in these things that is adding to that valuation. So that's why I don't think we're necessarily in a bubble. Now, there was a huge spurt of growth in the last 2 years because of COVID, but that growth was already going to happen. It was just going to take 10 years before COVID. COVID sped it up is all.
lots of investment in the 13 billion or something raised for aggregators. Like, is that going to continue? Do you see it changing the way the whole aggregator space works, or what do you think about that?
I think there's going to be. I think I just was listening to a podcast that there's probably going to be another 500 billion added to the funding for aggregators over the next couple of years. So I think that's the liquidity that they're looking to get into the market, to grow them. So that number could be wrong. This is just a podcast I was listening to yesterday. I'm terrible with numbers off the top of my head, but it was an insanely big number. But yeah, so in terms of what I see happening, I see a lot more aggregators coming to board, and that's going to make a lot more competition. And the really innovative aggregators, say like a Thrasio, for example, are going to do what they're already doing. They're going to start buying outside of FBA into, like, they're still going to buy FBA, but they're also going to start buying DTC e-commerce brands. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you look at Thrasio, they've already started doing this with 20% of their growth coming from DTC acquisitions. And then you also see the other aggregators doing what I called buying the whole vertical ecosystem. So they're buying not just FBA brands, but also warehouses. They're buying SaaS tools. They're buying anything around the entire ecosystem itself to own it, right? Very similar to like how Apple does things, right? Where they own their whole ecosystem. So that being said, a lot of them are going to fail in the next 2 years, and a lot of the successful ones are probably going to be buying those ones. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. You must see quite a spectrum of standard of aggregator, but we won't press too much into that. In terms of Amazon sellers listening now that are kind of on their journey, what would be some of your top advice for them to get a business ready to be sellable, to take advantage of this new trend?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is, even though this is an extremely hot market, like you cannot have asked for a better time to sell your FBA business, I would really not allow that to cloud your judgment as the entrepreneur. There's this tendency that we do in investing or in selling a business of like, I gotta sell at the ultimate mark, right? The ultimate highest price, right? And that leads us to trouble timing the market, right? It's always bad advice. So I always suggest the first step is outline what your personal and business goals are. And that sounds pretty wooey, but I think it's extremely important that you understand, why are you selling the business? Like, what does this get you to? How does this accomplish something in your life? So that's the first step. The second is knowing what you're actually valued at. So do an exit planning call. You could do one with us or whoever, just to figure out like the basics of what you should do. You should be doing that like about 6 months before you're ready to sell, ideally, so you have time to actually do something. During those 6 months, you should be cleaning up all of your documentation, like updating your SOPs, your product launches, all that kind of stuff. It's not uncommon that something that you used to do, that you created SOP for, it's not even possible to do it that way anymore because of the internet changing, right? So it's good to update all of that. Look at your SOP as kind of like the buyer's manual of your business, right? You want it to be that like detailed and documented. And if you're not using a broker, the best thing you could do is hire an e-commerce accountant to do your books. Like we will do it for you when you sell your business with us. But if you choose not to use us, this is like the number one thing I can tell you to do, because a lot of FBA entrepreneurs, as you know, is a very capital intensive business. They do their numbers and they're like, I am not making nearly as much as I thought I was, right? It's very easy to get into that situation. So we want to make sure that everything looks good. And like, don't hire like your family's accountant. Hire an actual e-commerce accountant that understands the business. It's extremely important. And do it in accrual, not in cash.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, accrual versus cash is so key. Yeah, absolutely.
Very really easy mistake to slip up on there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you, in terms of like timeline, what have you? Is there It'd be interesting to hear any crazy stories of business sales, regardless of this parameter. But in terms of timeline, have you seen anything, super quick? If someone's like right at the beginning of their journey right now, how quickly could they, realistically, if they had a good, 5 to 10,000 to put into a first product, something like that, what are the kind of the timescales you think they could be looking towards maybe a 7-figure exit?
Seven-figure exit, I'd say probably at least 2 years,
Yep.
and that's if you're going pretty fast. Because seven figures, you'll be making around $40,000 to $50,000 per month net profit over a 12-month average, right? So we look at everything usually on the trailing 12 months. So you really want like at least 2 years of data, and as your business gets bigger, the more timeline you really require. So 2 years is a good amount of time. Like a low seven-figure business, maybe you could do it in 14, 16 months with the market being as hot as it is. That's a possibility. But 2 years, you're in solid territory to be able to sell a seven-figure business.
And then do you see as the top line revenue grows, the multiples increase as well?
Typically, yeah. So as revenue and obviously net profit grows, it lends itself to you having a higher multiple. And if you are able, like, let's say you're an FBA entrepreneur right now and you're worth, say, an $800,000 valuation, and like right around the corner, there's going to be these big things that are about to happen that could push you over that seven-figure threshold. I highly recommend that because, one, you're going to get a multiple bump just because of the bigger revenue. But once you are in that seven-figure range, that's when you're dealing with the aggregators, and they love out-competing each other, and that's going to give you another boost to your multiple. Just them, like, competing for you is going to help you sell for much higher.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, good thoughts. And then, I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit about buying businesses with you as well, because it's something I think people would be interested in from a number of angles, which we'll get to. But just in terms of sort of rounding out on the selling side of it, for Amazon FBA businesses, do you see one thing? I'm sorry to be on the spot here in terms of numbers, but
no worries, my strong suit.
Sorry, yeah, I really should have prepared on this, but in terms of like net profitability, because I see it on Twitter all the time, it's like, would you rather have a $1 million business making 500,000 profit or a $10 million business making 500,000 profit? I always choose the bigger business, right? Because more revenue should theoretically mean a higher multiplication. But is that how it works in your space?
Yes. So I would say that question really depends on what your goal is, right? Like if your goal is to sell a business, then the bigger one makes the most sense to have. Like that's the one that you should sell, right? It's going to be way easier to sell. Like once you get above once you get above $10 million in terms of valuation, it's actually easier to sell your business. Like the same thing with once you get above $1 million. Like the orphan category is that 500,000 to 1 million. Like that little area is actually like the hardest area to sell a business in because there's the fewest amount of buyers. But yeah, so I would choose that. Now, if my goal is to be kind of like what we call a portfolio Paul, where I'm just looking to build like a bunch of passive income streams, and having a bunch of the businesses would make sense as long as they're automated. Because if one goes down, it's not a big deal necessarily.
Yeah. No, that's good. Interesting thoughts. You mentioned before we started recording about a unique Amazon strategy or tactic that you have. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I was telling Donovan offline, this is my clickbait title for this is how to do SEO for Amazon FBA without even owning a website and doing zero SEO yourself. So it's a very simple strategy. I have a lot of friends in the affiliate marketing space, and they're always looking for a good deal. And most of them use the Amazon Associates program, right? So if you go to Google and you type in, like, let's say you were selling blenders, you can go into Google, type in best blenders reviews. The top 10 websites that come up on Google most likely are going to be affiliate websites. And how they make money is someone clicks their Amazon affiliate link, goes to Amazon and buy a product, right? They get a commission from that. It was what Amazon calls its advertising fee. So what you can do as the FBA owner is you can proactively reach out to all 10 of those sites and say like, hey, look, I will give you $50 to $500. It'll probably cost you somewhere between there for them to put your product on that first result of their product review list and review the product. Now, you might need to send the product to them and do all that kind of stuff, right? Which is fine as well. But this allows you to basically dominate the top 10 search results of Google for between like $1,000 and maybe 5,000 at the higher end. And you start getting organic traffic coming in from them. And now you can take it to one level deeper by having them actually write a single product review of your product, and all their other single product reviews on their website. You can even pay them a little extra fee to direct that traffic instead to your competitor's product to that review of your product, to funnel all their website traffic to your Amazon product listing. And this is something that is actually a very proven way of doing this. If you look at the mattress space, they do this stuff all the time. They actually I have a friend, he was getting paid I think $5,000 a month by a mattress company to allow them to run paid ads to his website, to his reviews, where he still got where he could still earn the affiliate commission, because they just wanted to dominate the first page of Google completely. That's a hyper competitive space, but this is something you can easily apply to FBA, and it's a solid winner.
Yeah, I heard this guy talking about how I think he was in like the affiliate space as well, and recently saying about how he had an article ranked #1 for, not only a high traffic search term but also a high cost per click search term. So the value of clicks on his page, he calculated it was getting X amount of clicks, and people were paying X amount of per click to Google for advertising, and so he just undercut that by 20% and said, "Hey, give me X amount a month, and you can have that first spot." And and it's absolutely wild.
This is exactly it. So affiliates, they're some of the best marketers in the world because they operate on such thin margins for what they get. So they can be an amazing source of traffic for you, and they're always looking for deals. If you email them, they're like, "Oh my God, yes, I will gladly take $100. All I have to do is change out a link, no problem."
Yeah.
Like it's easy for them. Another strategy you can do with those sites, by the way, if they have a Facebook Pixel or Google Pixel set up, I don't know if you can do it with Google. I know you can do it with Facebook. You can rent the pixel from them. So if they're a big content site, you can actually rent that audience for your PPC.
Yeah, wow. Massive possibilities, yeah. And do you know much about, because I've heard it talked about how if you are sending traffic from Google to Amazon, it's going to help with the SEO signals are going to help with your sort of organic ranking on Amazon. Do you know much about that side of it, or is that a bit too technical?
Yes. No. That's totally true. Now, I don't know if Google SEO specifically is like the best form of that, but I do know sending external traffic to Amazon, especially buying traffic. That's the key element. People who actually buy your product, that sends a huge buy signal to Amazon. You're like, "Oh my God, people are interested in this, love this product. Let's promote it more because we'll make more money," right? So that's usually how that system works with external traffic. In fact, some of my friends, their entire product launches are designed around that concept using paid traffic.
Yeah, we've got a guy now in Brand Building University, and he's just recently shot up to doing like 300,000 a month in sales, and he's saying he's trying to now target his best competitor, who's doing I think $500,000 a month, and one of their big strategies he's told me is that they are getting they're getting ranked on Google for certain buying keywords, and then that traffic is being sent to Amazon, obviously similar to what you were talking about, top 10, and then it would send it to Amazon, and that is really boosting their organic rank. But it's the first time I've heard that obviously buying traffic that goes through Google and then buys is going to impact ranking, but just purely the SEO alone, the fact that you are ranking high for your Amazon link, it's actually an Amazon link ranking high in Google. Amazon love that because they're not having to fund that SEO. They're not having to pay for anything, and so I've heard that theory, but I just didn't know if you'd heard much about that.
So one of the things that might be happening there too is SEO tends to be the highest converting form of traffic out there because it's so intent based, right?
Yeah.
So it could it might not even be related to SEO. It's just the fact that you're sending so many people who are going to convert because of that intent
true.
that is causing that to happen. And if you want to take that whole strategy to the next level, I know we want to talk about buying businesses. This is kind of related. We have people even aggregators do this sometimes, where they'll look on our marketplace to buy a content site, say about blenders, to redistribute all that traffic towards their FBA products, right? So they'll buy a $500,000 content site and send all that traffic to their FBA listing.
Yeah, and this is, why I wanted to talk to you about it, because this is a strategy I've been thinking about is, rather than take money out of the company and, have to pay heaps of tax on it, is why not reinvest that into assets? Because I could take money out of my company and buy assets personally, but a much more tax efficient way is to buy them through the company. And, content sites is something that I think is a great opportunity, for first-time business buyers, let alone. But I think to combine it then with brand owners that could buy media, not just websites, but media assets that are congruent with their brand. I just think it's it just fascinates me. I feel like it's just such a big opportunity.
Oh, it's huge, absolutely huge. This is something I talk about all the time. Is that I have a lot of good FBA friends and a lot of good SEO friends, but they tend to both get very myopic in their own world, that they don't see the bigger picture of what is possible. But if you combine, say you bought a home and kitchen website, right? And you have this huge audience that is coming through SEO. Well, most SEOs, they never build an email list. It's all about rank it and forget it, and they never do anything else with like the most valuable traffic in the world. So you could go in and buy that content site, build out an email list, build a real brand around that content site. So it goes from what I call a brochure website to a magazine website. So a brochure, like you and I are walking down the street, right? I give you a brochure, and you have like two things. You will look at it and maybe buy something and then throw away the brochure, or just throw it away, but you're not keeping it. Versus a magazine, that might have inherent value. So you might read it, buy something, and keep the magazine because it has value, right? So by turning this content site into a magazine style site, building out this huge email list, I always tell people, like, this is the easiest way, in my view, like if you put in the hard work, to build a gigantic e-commerce brand. Because if you build that home and kitchen website up and you just poll your audience, like, hey, what kind of spatula should we make, guys? And they all vote, and you put that on Amazon, guess what? You're going to like outcompete most spatula companies because you have this horde of people coming in and buying it at the moment of product launch that you can tap into anytime you want.
Yeah. And does this kind of thing, great thoughts, by the way, and does this kind of thing add into the valuation of a business? You know, if I go out there and buy a content site that's producing or is worth, say, 100K, and I add it to my Amazon business that's worth $1 million, how does that, what are the economics there?
Sure. So when you do that, you do increase your valuation. Now, it obviously is going to be extremely case by case basis, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's not going to be, like just an extra 5x or something like that on a monthly EBITDA. Like we'll have to look at it. But what it does is it does several different things that improves your valuation that I could talk about in a general way. So one is traffic diversity, right? So most businesses we sell are mono traffic. So they have one channel, and that's pretty much it. Like Amazon organic, Amazon PPC, or maybe Amazon or Facebook ads to their Amazon product, right? So if all their traffic is coming from Facebook and Facebook like shuts down their account, they don't have a business anymore, right? Their traffic is gone. So by doing this, you're creating in that extra safety of diversity. If one channel goes down, you're still going to be good. So that creates an extra moat that makes your business more valuable. It's harder to copy. And it just builds a better brand, and better brands always will get better valuations.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear a bit of like a confirmation, just some things I've been thinking about. I think there's this, because so many Amazon sellers, they just focus on Amazon and they won't do the hard yards on other aspects. And I think there's so much more value that you can add and build equity and diversification. I think there's so many benefits to it.
For sure. I have so many friends who get lost on that Amazon hamster because the money's so good, right? But then something happens, like a policy change, or what we saw just a few months ago with them changing the warehouse, inventory policy, juggling all that. It's like, I'm feeling the pain now, building on one platform only, right?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. What would you say to like a first-time business buyer then? If there's people out there listening thinking, well, I'd either love to just buy a business to start with, or what are the benefits of buying versus starting?
Sure. So in general, and I don't know this to be true, I feel like I read a study somewhere about this, but in general, I would say starting a business from scratch is way riskier than buying a business, because starting one from scratch, you don't have any data. You don't have a product market fit. There's no historical proof of earnings versus buying a business that has all that. It's already done the traction work, which is arguably one of the hardest parts in business. There's a common thing, like it's way easier to go from $5,000 a month to $10,000 than it is to go from 0 to 1,000, right? That's totally true from what I have seen so far working at EF. So one is safer in that regard. Now, if you're brand new, you want to set the cards up in your failure, because just because it's easier doesn't mean it's not hard. It's extremely hard still, right? You could lose your shirt in this business, and it's a high value transaction you want to do. So my advice is start small. Take your budget. Say you have $300,000 to buy a business with, right? If you're brand new, you might want to split that into 3 buckets, so $100,000 each, and buy 100,000 or less business. And whatever business you buy, make sure you have like 20% in working capital. So if you're buying a 100K business, have 120K to devote for that. So 100K for the acquisition, 20K if something goes wrong. That puts in some margin of error for you. A lot of people, they end up trying to go too big too fast, and they make a lot of mistakes. And because they went so big, like say borrowing a bunch of money, they don't have the luxury for a margin of error. And you want that margin of error when you first begin, because you're probably going to make mistakes, even if you use us, right? We'll coach you on what to do and all that stuff, but obviously running the business, like we can't coach you on that. So like you have to go and do it, right? And that can make mistakes, and you don't want to put yourself out of the game before you're able to swing a few times, right? So that's some beginner's advice.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. You mentioned early on about most deals that are a bit scammy are under 100K. If somebody's looking to, if they do have 20, 30, 40,000 and they'd like to buy a business, is it still possible? What are the parameters there?
Yes, 100% still possible. So if you use us, you don't have to worry about that. Like maybe something will slip through, but it's extremely rare any of that kind of stuff ever slips through on our marketplace because of our vetting team. Now, if you want to go more private direction, it's still possible to do. There's just some stuff you got to watch out for that are red flags. So things like fake reviews, you got to know how to spot those, right? This is very common if you're buying from, say, a Chinese seller. It's very common for them to burn through Seller Central accounts with a bunch of blackout reviews, and they just don't care. So that's something to watch out for. Like, do they have products that are not making any money? That's common, actually, where they'll include it in there. So then you're buying dead inventory. So that 40K business might have like an extra $20,000 of product that's just not really selling very well. So that's something to watch out for. There's also the friends and family problem on the very low level. This doesn't happen very often in FBA, but it does happen in content sites where basically all the revenue is actually coming from, say, their friends and family just buying the products over a period of time, and that's how they do the scam because the numbers are technically real, but it's just their friends and family. So then they sell it to you, right? So that's one way that they can get you. There's another thing too. You want to make sure, speaking of the friends and family thing, that the traffic that's coming to the FBA product listing, as much as they can tell, is actually the buying traffic. So something that could happen is say that person selling the business has a giant content site in their portfolio that's driving 100% of the traffic to their FBA product listing. Like, well, does that content site come with the acquisition? Like, what happens once I acquire this? Are you just like removing the promotion? Like, so like all the sales are going to go away. So these are some of the stuff to consider. It's definitely possible. It's 100% possible. You just got to be more careful.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good thoughts. How are people financing this? Is it fully cash, or I know obviously in America there's Sba Loans. Is that like a common thing for buying these businesses?
So SBA is not as common for us as it is for other brokers, and the reason why is we tend to be able to sell the businesses without SBA. A lot of the other brokers rely much heavier on SBA, and we don't. So all the best businesses that would qualify for it is already sold by the time an SBA comes in. That's why we don't like doing SBA. It just takes forever, which obviously is not great from a seller's perspective, right? Not terribly great from a buyer's perspective either. The slowness doesn't favor really anyone, but so that is an option. If you're looking at, say, 100,000 or even 200,000 and less, you're looking at all cash usually. Those will almost never get an SBA done. Just because there's so many all cash buyers, you're not going to beat them out. Like, sellers do not like earnouts usually, unless there's like a big benefit for them to take it, right? So they won't. They'll just do the all cash offer, like in most circumstances. So in those cases, you have to move very quick to do all cash. Now, you get above 200,000, then you're looking at being able to do some financing, which in our space really comes down to just seller financing. So you have a 500K business, you put down, say, 350K, and you pay out the other 150K over a period of 6 months, or based on whatever terms you and the seller agreed to. But it's usually seller financing. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. It's, all signs that it's a very hot market.
Yes.
That's good. And then just final question then before we round up, like, or give you a chance to say anything that maybe I haven't asked yet, but what kind of strategies do you think might go well for, existing brand owners? Is it, its strength to add to the business, buying another brand that they can add to their e-commerce portfolio, or do you think there are other sort of acquisition strategies that existing Amazon sellers should consider?
Yeah, so I'm going to give the most annoying answer, which is it depends.
It depends. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
It depends on what your current skill sets are. So, like for me, for example, I'm a content marketing guy. That's like what I live and breathe as content, right? So for me, it would make a lot of sense to do what we were talking about earlier with the media empire strategy, because I know I could probably pull that off. Not many people would go that direction. Now, if the listener in the audience right now is like a guru with logistics, I would say that becomes your superpower you pursue more so than the other shiny thing. Look for the boring repetition stuff that you can like do with your eyes closed and look. So in that case, if you're really good at logistics, I would find an FBA business that's really struggling, that they have stockouts, that they have logistic issues, which is most of them right now, right? A lot of them are going through a lot of painful supply chain stuff. If you're a wizard at that, you can get a discount and buy that wounded business, heal it up, and you'll gain all the equity on the ride up. And you could combine it with your current business if there's synergy, right, between the two products.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. Amazing. Yeah, no, interesting thoughts. Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet today you feel like the listeners should know?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think you asked some good questions here. I think it's... I guess I would end it with, just don't become myopic in terms of thinking only about Amazon all the time. Like Amazon at the end of the day is merely a distribution platform for your brand. So think of it as a distribution channel, just like we would with Facebook ads, if you really want to go super big. And that I think that will serve you well. Yeah, definitely. And you're pretty bullish on the market, hey? Next 3 to 5 years, lots more growth to come. I think so. I'm bullish on the internet. My life changed completely through internet marketing, right? I used to be an oil field roughneck up in Alaska, and now I'm doing this, right? All because of internet marketing. So I think right now has never been a better time to be an entrepreneur, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. Like valuations have gone way up, but there's also a lot more deals for the buyers to look at. So there's a lot more great businesses to buy than ever before. And on the sell side, there's so many opportunities to make life-changing capital. And we just went through like a massive black swan event here in the world with COVID, right? And who grew? It was online businesses. So I think the future looks very bright for most digital entrepreneurs, is what I'd say. That's good. That's what we like to hear. Awesome, Greg. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the Brand Builder Show. Appreciate your time massively. And where can people find out more about Empire Flippers and yourself if they're interested to learn more? Sure. So empireflippers.com. You can also check out our valuation tool. It's just, if you Google valuations tool Empire Flippers, you'll find it. And that gives you a quick rundown of what your business is worth. If you want to get in contact with me, you can just email me, greg@empireflippers.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Like I said, it was a bit different maybe to some of the episodes we've done. We chatted about some maybe more random topics than you might be used to, but I think it's really good as an entrepreneur to look at businesses with a more holistic view. And real interesting thoughts there that definitely have affirmed some of the things I was thinking about, and definitely lit a bit more interest in them to continue to pursue on my journey. Like I say, reach out. Let me know what you thought on all social media channels. There's the Instagram. There's you can find me on Twitter. The Amazon FBA community on Twitter continues to grow strong, and I'm twitter.com/Ben Donovan. You can find me there. And as ever, please do feel free to leave a review of the podcast on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button on the video just to help us get these episodes out to more people. The audience is growing and the podcast is gathering a bit of momentum, but any help is always appreciated. We'll be back next week with another great episode, and so I'll see you then.